Yes, folks, it's the Beer Drinker's Guide to the Great Wahoo. Last week I promised we'd finish our train ride in Alaska and get stranded in the snow. So let's take that adventure. Yes, folks, it's time for another train ride in Alaska. As you remember, last week we went up the Sustina River from Anchorage up to Denali, took a look at Mount McKinley, and then we promised that we'd be going over the pass up the Tanana River to Fairbanks. As you can see from the map, we go to Fairbanks and then back down to Anchorage. The ride both ways starts at about 8:30 in the morning and gets in at 7:45 according to schedule. However, that doesn't work if you happen to get caught in a snowstorm and stranded on a train ride in Alaska. That story yet to come. So we leave Denali and head over a pass into the Tanana River. The Tanana River runs up to Fairbanks. The Tanana River going the other way goes down to the Yukon River, which runs all the way across central Alaska and dumps into the Bering Sea. You know, all of this adventure was in March, so it was cold and it got dark early. One of the reasons I went that time of the year was I needed time during the day to travel the Alaskan Highway, and I also wanted to have lots of darkness so that I could see the northern lights. I'm kind of an adventure traveler. I don't usually sign up for a lot of tours, but I have learned over the years that tours are really handy. And I must admit that one of the choices I was glad I made on this trip was to let the Alaskan Railroad take care of me. They have a deal where you board their winter train. The train leaves at 8:30 in the morning. It gets to Fairbanks 356 miles later at about 7:45. They pick you up in a cab and take you to a hotel. They let you refresh yourself. They pick you up and take you to a restaurant. You enjoy whatever you want to eat. And then they take you back to your hotel, and the next morning pick you up and take you back to the train station. Well, that certainly sounded better than trying to find a place to stay once I got to Fairbanks, knowing very well that it would be dark. It would be dark, even though it was only 7:45. It was March, and it would be dark in Alaska at 7:45. So I took them up on their deal, and we got to Fairbanks fully expecting a nice yellow cab. Well, the nice part was certainly true, and the yellow part was certainly true. But this, we must remember, is Alaska. Yes, indeed, folks. In Alaska, a yellow cab is something that can get the business done. So, we got to our hotel, got spruced up, went out to dinner, drank a few beers, got up the next morning, got back on the train. I had seen a tunnel the day before when we were going toward Fairbanks. Wanted to make sure I got a photograph of it. Tunnels are always part of the fun of a train. Such magnificent country. And here we are on the other side of the tunnel. going down the Tanana River in its tumbling way to the Yukon. While we were in Fairbanks, we began to hear rumors that there had been a snowstorm in Anchorage. And people were saying it was a pretty good snowstorm. And we thought, well, that's amusing, you know, it's a snowstorm. We're a long way from Anchorage, we're a full day's train ride away, everything will be fine by the time we get there. Well, we got closer and closer and closer to Anchorage, and along the way I was sitting in the dining car of the train, and a young gentleman came along, an interesting guy. His name's Andy. He was from Indiana, as I remember. He was leaving Fairbanks, where he was going to school, and was heading back home. Enjoyed his company. He was looking for a ride to the airport once he got in. The train was bound to get in at 7:45, and his airplane was leaving somewhere around 11. So I said, well, I'll give you a ride up to the airport. That's no problem. So we got closer and closer to Anchorage, and I didn't see any particular more snow than I'd been seeing anywhere else. As we got closer to town, I still didn't see very much snow. However, a few miles, maybe 10 miles out of Anchorage, all of a sudden there was a lot of snow outside. We got a little closer to Anchorage. I couldn't tell just exactly how far. I do know that the highway was not too far away. We could see it. But suddenly the train stopped. And they said that we would be here until they got us dug out. Now, I unfortunately didn't have an opportunity to go take a picture of their digging us out. But we sat there a while. We sat there, I don't know, 30 minutes, an hour, something like that, while they dug our stranded train out of a snowstorm. I said to Andy, I says, well, you know, it's getting in a little late. You might want to take a cab instead of, you know, because I'll be needing to dig my car out if there's this much snow. He says, no, don't worry about it. I'll stick around and we'll get your car out. So, fine. Finally, the train did pull in. As I remember, it was an hour and a half late. We got out of the car, or got out of the train. And the day before, when I had parked my car to get in the train, I had left a bread and breakfast that I'd been staying at on a fairly steep hill, and I had parked between two cars. The road was so slick, and I do not have a four-wheel drive vehicle. The road was so slick that I could not pull out of the parking space and up the hill. I literally had to slide my way around in the parking space to where I was going directly across the road, and then I could get to where I was going down the road. Well, I thought, you know, just in case there is slick roads tomorrow, which is a pretty darn good guess when you're in Anchorage, I'm going to try to find a place that I will be at the end of the row of cars so that if I need to get out, I can back up. Or if it's a downhill, I'll be at the front of it so that I can get out without having to maneuver around some other cars. Well, right across from the train station, I had found just the spot. It was a Saturday, so they weren't enforcing the parking rules. You didn't need to put quarters in the machine. And it was right at the end of the row of cars parked on the side of the road. And I had thought, well, this is the perfect place to park. Well, Andy and I got to my car, and I once again offered to Andy that he might want to think about taking a cab, because I had a little shovel in the trunk of my car, a little, just in case you get in trouble, little plain old garden variety shovel. But it certainly would take a while to move what we found when it came time to dig my car out of the Alaska snowstorm. It had snowed in Anchorage. It was the deepest snow Anchorage had ever recorded, 28 inches. There were a couple guys walking up the sidewalk when we started approaching the car, and it became obvious I was going to try to dig it out. They just started laughing. They just started laughing at us, knowing that we would never get that out of there. Well, I guess they didn't notice that there were no cars behind us. I guess they thought we'd be trying to go uphill. And as anybody knows, you don't go uphill when you're stranded, you go down. While I started to open the car, I saw Andy run off, and I didn't blame him a bit. However, he was running to get a couple shovels he saw. So here's Andy with one of the 2 shovels that saved our bacon that day. While I got the car swept off, Andy started shoveling. I got in and pitched on a little shoveling by the time it was over. And we backed that car right out of there, got Andy to the airport in plenty of time for his plane. And that, folks, well, other than my getting a hotel that night, was the end of my train adventures, my train ride in Alaska. And now let's play Faith, Knowledge. Take your pick. Well, let's look at this very amusing word. Bibliolatry. I discovered this while I was trying to look up the word biblio. We will get into the word biblio in a little bit, but in the meantime, let's go take a little journey in the story of bibliolatry. Let's look at the book of bibliolatry, shall we? The definition of bibliolatry is the superstitious reverence of a book. Now note, it's superstitious, which means believing in things that are bigger than what you understand. Superness means that which is larger than life or larger than my understanding. The superstitious reverence being not a respect for or a understanding of, but rather a reverence, a worship, shall we say, of, and in this case, it is a book. Let's go look at the words that bibliolatry is made up of, shall we? It has a root word and it has a suffix. The root word being biblia. Biblia is Greek, or it comes from the word Greek, the Greek word that means book, as in a bibliophile, a person who loves books, not a person who worships books, a person who loves them, a person who loves the feel of a book and the smell of a book and the reading of a book. There's also bibliography, when you are reading something and you want to know the references that were used, where the knowledge came from that you're reading, you look in the back of the book under the bibliography, which is a description of the books that it came from. And of course, one of the words that we use that comes from biblia is Bible. Bible literally means a library of little books, or a library of stories, which we all know is what the Bible is. It is a biblia. It is a bibliography. It is a library of little books. There is a suffix to the word bibliolatry. It is the same suffix that makes up the word idolatry. An idol, of course, is anything, any physical thing. It can be a car, it can be a statue, it can be pretty well anything. It is an idol, it is a physical thing. Idolatry means an excessive love or worship. So an excessive love or worship of a physical thing, or an excessive love or worship of a book. Idolatry is worshiping things. The olatry suffix means to worship whatever it is that the root word is about. Now, the trouble with worshiping things is not the things themselves, it is the worshiping them. And it really doesn't matter what it is that we're worshiping. It can be an image. Some people get all gaga about, I don't know, something looking like something on the side of a mountain. It can be a statue, a three-dimensional thing. Again, an automobile, any three-dimensional thing. And of course, it can be books. Books are things. It doesn't matter who you think wrote them, and it doesn't matter if you think this is true and nobody else does. The bottom line is books are things, and worshiping them means worshiping a thing. It means worshiping an idol. Now, what's wrong with worshiping idols? No matter what they are, an image, a statue, a book, anything in the physical world. The trouble with worshiping things, folks, the reason that we have been directed not to do that by all faiths, not just by the monotheistic faiths, but by all faiths, is that to worship things separates you from your heart. It separates you from the livingness of life. There are those who say it separates you from God, but to me that's just throwing another word in, and it gets to where people are worshiping the word just as much as people were worshiping things. Words, of course, are merely symbols. The trouble with worshiping things is that it separates you from your heart. The trouble with being separated from your heart is that it separates you from the livingness of your being. It actually makes it so that you think others don't share your experience of spirit. It doesn't necessarily force you to do that. There are people who worship things and who still can look at other people and say, oh, well, they might not worship the trinket that I worship, but they're still humans, they're still spirits. I can see that they are still experiencing life the way I am. But if you're separated from your heart, it is awfully easy to talk you into the idea that if somebody else doesn't worship what you worship, they're different than you, which is just silly. Another thing that happens when you're separated from your heart is that you can get to where you think animals don't share your experience of a soul. My goodness, look in the eyes of a dog. You can tell that they are experiencing what it is to be sentient in the world. They are experiencing what it is to hurt and to feel fear and to feel happiness. Our sharing this phenomenal world with all of life is taken away from us when we're separated from our heart. The worst of it is it can make it so that we don't see the wonder and magic of all beingness. Even a blade of grass, a rock, the sunshine. When you're separated from your heart, it becomes awfully easy to become separated from the wonder and the magic of all beingness. And that is the trouble with olatries of any kind, be they of a book or of a statue or of a television, anything that separates you from this wonder of life is not something that you want to spend a whole lot of time on. Now, let's not get zealous about this, shall we? There are those who say, well, my book, my lesson is that an image distracts me from God, and therefore I have to go destroy the image. Well, if your God is so weak that having some beautiful piece of art around to celebrate will destroy your God, then I think you better get another God, folks. Zealots are just as hung up on the images and the idolatry as the people who are worshiping the things, because they actually give power to those things. So I'm not saying that we should not celebrate the glory of art, the glory of images, the glory of these things, but we should not worship them. We should not have a superstitious reverence of them. But let's get on with the book of Bibliolatry, shall we? The trouble with being separated from your heart, the trouble with believing in idolatries of any kind, is that they actually let you believe the impossible. And what is the impossible, folks? The impossible is that you can even be separated from God. How is that possible? How could you possibly be separated from God? And if you're not separated from God, if it is absolutely impossible, then what do you need with someone telling you, well, just come to me and I'll make it so that you're not separated from God. And oh, by the way, mostly I'm going to keep telling you that you are separated from God, and you better keep coming and putting your shekels in my coffers, because it's the only way you can get back to God. Well, the fact is, folks, you cannot possibly be separated from God. And that is the trouble with letting people talk you in to worshiping things. So, bibliolatry, the superstitious reverence of a book, actually lets you believe the impossible, and that is that you can be separated from God. Now, there is another way, folks. It's called your spirit. The fact is, we are spiritual beings just as much as we are physical beings, just as much as we are sexual beings, just as much as we are sentient beings. We hunger for our spirit. And if you follow your spirit, if you follow your hunger to evolve and grow in this amazing gift we call life, then you absolutely will be demanded pursuing spirituality instead of an idolatry. Pursuing your spiritual self will absolutely demand that you cannot possibly be separated. Absolutely cannot be. It would be impossible. It cannot be possible that you can be separated from the great Wahoo. Now, it's time for Signs of Our Times. Living proof that everything's just going to heck in a handbasket. And with today's Signs of Our Times, here is our host, the beer drinker himself. For the last several months, I've been enjoying watching a construction project on the corner of Americana and Shoreline Drive. Let's take a look at this project, folks. Even before they started putting all this steel work inside the middle of this building, the cement walls went up in sections. Each piece of cement was just stuck up there. It was not framed in place. It was a pre-stressed piece of concrete that came in, and they put it up. And then they put those plywood pieces over the windows. And now that they're filling the frame in, they still have those plywood pieces over the windows. Now there is a fence around this construction site, but even if there weren't a fence around this construction site, exactly who are those pieces of plywood keeping out or keeping in? Well, just part of the fun of the Great Wahoo. And this has been another exciting adventure in the signs of our times. Proof it's all going to heck in a handbasket if we can't think better than we do. Signs of Our Times, a special feature of the Beer Drinker's Guide to the Great Wahoo. And today's special feature of Signs of Our Times was sponsored by Nuts. Nuts in a basket. Yes, folks, nuts. They're tasty, they're delicious, they make you feel good. There's nothing better than nuts. Pick up a handful today. Nuts! It's what's in your basket. Nuts! We just got through with Easter. And you know, it made me wonder about that Easter bunny running around hiding his eggs all over the place. Now, why on earth would a bunny behave in such a bizarre way? Then, of course, I realized, well, of course he behaves like that. You wouldn't want anybody knowing that you've been dating chickens, would you? And with that celebration of springtime, we're going to end this week's edition of the Beer Drinker's Guide to the Great Wahoo. We thank you for being here. We look forward to you coming in next week when we will come up with our final journey to Alaska, at least for now. Next week we'll be looking at skiing up there, and we'll also be celebrating a lady who has no arms, and yet, despite that, is given one of the great golden apples. Until then, enjoy the Great Wahoo!